Rinna's ears twitched, tail flicking behind her as she leaned across the table and whispered with bold seriousness. You say smirk when you bite lips, yes? If you enjoy stories where laughter becomes love and language bridges worlds, make sure to subscribe for more heartwarming sci-fi tales every day. The U.S. Meridian hung silent above a blue-white planet, a massive ring of steel and glass filled with voices from 100 worlds. In one quiet classroom near the station's central habitat ring, a human man sat across from a foxwoman with flaming hair and sharper curiosity. Her notebook was full of scribbles, half grammar, half doodles of tails and teeth. She had been studying English for months now, and somehow, every lesson brought Elias Mercer closer to a nervous breakdown. Today's word was smirk. And judging by the look on Rinna's face, he already knew the universe was about to get a lot more complicated. Elias pinched the bridge of his nose, trying very hard not to laugh. No, Rinna, he said, voice tight with effort. That's not what smirk means. The foxwoman tilted her head, amber eyes blinking wide, ears twitching in perfect sync with her confusion. Not bite, she repeated slowly. Then smirk is what? It's more of a facial expression, he explained, gesturing vaguely at his own mouth. A little half smile, usually smug, teasing, or amused. You don't bite anything. You just look like you know something someone else doesn't. Rinna's ears perked. Ah, she exclaimed, proud to have grasped at least half of it. So you smirk when you are sneaky. Close enough, Elias said, smiling despite himself. Yeah, sneaky works. Just don't go around biting your lip every time you think you're clever. People might get the wrong idea. She frowned in thought, tail curling like a question mark behind her. Wrong idea? Never mind, Elias said quickly. Let's move on. But they didn't. Because Rinna, as usual, latched onto the thing that amused her most. She turned toward him with an expression that could only be described as mischievous curiosity. Her sharp little fangs flashed as she attempted her first official smirk. The result was intense. Her lips twisted, her nose scrunched slightly, one eyebrow shot up, and her tail wagged so hard it nearly knocked over a data pad. Elias tried, truly tried, to be encouraging. That's something, he said carefully. She puffed her cheeks. No good? It's, too much confidence. A smirk should be subtle. Small. Try again, but like you're hiding a secret. Rinna narrowed her eyes and leaned in close, face inches from his. Like this? She whispered, mouth curving ever so slightly. Elias froze. That one was actually perfect. Too perfect. He coughed and looked away, pretending to flip through his notes. Yes. That's exactly right. You've got it. Rinna preened proudly, her tail swishing in satisfaction. Then I am smirk master, she declared, grinning ear to ear. He chuckled. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Their lessons always went like this, chaotic, hilarious, and slightly dangerous for Elias's sanity. Rinna's English had improved fast, but her personality was unstoppable. Every phrase became a puzzle, every idiom a trap she walked straight into with fearless enthusiasm. Earlier that week she'd asked if butterflies in my stomach meant humans were sick from flying insects. The week before she'd thought break a leg was a literal threat. Elias had started keeping a list of her linguistic disasters, half for reference, half for entertainment. Now, as she scribbled notes furiously in her notebook, her handwriting wobbling with excitement, he found himself smiling more than teaching. There was something about her energy, untamed, bright, and entirely too honest for this sterile metal station. She noticed his grin and pointed at it suspiciously. You are smirking, she accused. He blinked. No, I'm smiling. Her tail flicked. You said smirk is small smile? You are small smiling. That is smirk. Not every small smile is a smirk, he countered patiently. A smirk usually means you're feeling clever or teasing someone. Then you are teasing me? She asked innocently. No, I wasn't. Elias sighed. Okay, fine. Maybe a little. Rinna smirked again, this one deliberate, playful. Then we both smirk, she said proudly. He gave up. There was no winning with her. After their session ended, Rinna refused to leave right away. She lingered, pretending to pack her notes while watching him with that new, dangerous smirk she'd just learned. Elias caught her staring more than once, each time pretending not to notice. Tomorrow, she said finally, we learn more human face words. Expressions, he corrected gently. And yes. Expressions, idioms, gestures, all that. She nodded, her voice soft. I want to learn everything. So I can speak like you. Something in that made his chest tighten. He smiled faintly. You're already doing better than most humans I know. Her ears tilted at that. Then, I am human? Elias chuckled. Not exactly. But maybe the most human fox I've met. Her smile softened. Then I will keep trying. When she left, tail swaying through the door, the classroom felt strangely quiet. Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at the open notebook she'd left behind. On the last page, she'd written in blocky handwriting. To smirk equals to smile with secret. Use when teasing Elias. He groaned. Oh no. And somewhere down the hall, he swore he heard her laughter echo. Bright, musical, and entirely too pleased with herself. The next morning, she arrived early. Elias barely had time to sip his coffee before she appeared at his desk, tail wagging with predatory purpose. Good morning, teacher, she said, lips twitching. You look tired. Maybe you stayed awake, thinking about my smirk? He spat his coffee. Her laughter filled the room again. Rinna was unstoppable after that. Once she learned how to smirk, she treated it like a newly discovered superpower. Every morning, she walked into class with a new, practiced smirk, each one wilder than the last. This one confident, she said one day, lowering her eyelids and tilting her head like a noir detective. Elias tried to stay serious. You look like you're about to rob someone. Her ears twitched. Then I must need more eyebrow? She raised both eyebrows so high they practically vanished into her bangs. Elias burst out laughing. Okay, tone it down. Smirking isn't an Olympic sport. But she took notes anyway. Literal notes. He peeked once and saw. Smirk, not too much eyebrow. Not like criminal. More like teasing. She underlined, teasing, 3 times and drew a little doodle of herself wagging her tail next to it. Every lesson was like this. Grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, all punctuated by Rinna's endless curiosity and unintentional comedy. When she wasn't mixing up words, she was proudly overusing them. Once, during a conversation exercise with the ship's doctor, she had said, You smirk well, doctor. Maybe too well. Very suspicious. The doctor had nearly choked on his tea. Elias had spent the rest of the day fielding questions about his unusual teaching style. Still, he couldn't stay annoyed. She made learning joyful, in a way no classroom or manual ever could. Watching her eyes light up when she finally understood a new phrase, or when she caught herself using sarcasm correctly, made all the frustration worth it. She'd come far already. The broken, halting sentences of their first days had become fluid conversation. Her accent was still thick, rolling her R's and flattening her vowels, but Elias secretly found it endearing. One afternoon, she leaned over his shoulder, studying the lesson plan. Her scent, faint spice and warm fur, filled his head. He didn't move away. What mean? Deadpan humor? She asked. He smiled faintly. That's when you make a joke without showing any emotion. Like this. He put on his best blank face and said, Your tail is very subtle today. Rinna looked at him, dead serious. No. It is not. Then she realized. Oh. That was deadpan. She clapped, delighted. Exactly, Elias said, trying not to laugh. She sat back with her tail swishing proudly. I learn fast. Soon I speak better than you. He raised an eyebrow. pretty bold claim. She smirked. You teach me too well. And she had, not just words, but nuance. Every day she picked up something new, how to joke, how to exaggerate, how to flirt without meaning to. And Elias, against his better judgment, enjoyed every minute. They started staying after lessons just to talk. About human music, Foxworld customs, the ridiculous quirks of both species. Rinna confessed she used to think humans had no tails because they were ashamed of them. Elias told her about idioms like silver lining and under the weather. She listened intently, sometimes leaning so close he forgot what the lesson was supposed to be. Humans have strange sayings, she mused once. You say cat got your tongue, but why cat? Why tongue? Elias chuckled. It's just an old phrase. It means someone can't talk. She nodded thoughtfully. Ah. So, when you look at me and forget words, cat got tongue? He froze. Her smirk spread slowly across her lips. That was joke, she said proudly. He groaned. You're becoming dangerous. The crew noticed their closeness, of course. Passing by the linguistic bay, they'd hear laughter or see Rinna leaning over Elias's desk, tail brushing against his arm. A few started teasing him about having a fox crush. Elias brushed it off, but the warmth in his chest betrayed him. By week's end, her English was remarkable. She'd mastered tenses, conquered contractions, and nearly stopped calling every idiom strange human spell. Nearly. But her favorite subject remained the same. Today, she declared tail high, I practice advanced smirk. Elias nearly sighed. Rinna, there's no such thing as advanced smirk. She leaned closer. Then I invent it. He pointed his pen at her. You're enjoying this way too much. She tilted her head, voice softening. You said smirk is when you feel clever? But sometimes I smirk because I am happy. Her sincerity caught him off guard. That's actually a good reason to do it. Her ears perked at his tone. Then, you like when I smirk? He hesitated. Well, I think it suits you. She smiled wide, tail curling lazily behind her. Then I will keep doing it. Elias didn't realize how much trouble he was in until that evening. During dinner in the crew lounge, Rinna spotted him across the table, locked eyes, and gave him a tiny, perfect smirk. His fork froze midair. Her friends at the table noticed. Rinna, one of the other trainees whispered. Why you look at him like that? Rinna's tail flicked mischievously. Teacher says smirk shows cleverness. I am clever. Elias hid his face in his hands while the entire table laughed. And though he pretended to be exasperated, he couldn't help smiling too. Because somewhere between grammar lessons and misused idioms, he'd stopped seeing her as just a student. He was in real trouble now. Rinna's lessons began expanding far beyond the classroom. She claimed that real mastery of English required field testing, and Elias, against his better judgment, let her. That was how, one bright morning aboard the U.S. Meridian, the foxwoman declared herself ready to speak like real human. Where are you going? Elias asked as she marched past him with a datapad clutched proudly to her chest. To cafeteria, she said firmly. To practice conversation. You said I must use English every day. So I will use every day. He followed, partly to supervise and partly because the thought of her unsupervised around other humans made him nervous. When they arrived, she greeted the lunch staff with a radiant smile. Good morning, human foods! The staff looked up in confusion. Elias groaned. Rinna, you greet people, not the food. Oh. She straightened, tail flicking. Good morning, people of foods. The cooks burst out laughing. Rinna smirked at Elias triumphantly. I make them happy. I am good student. He rubbed his temples. You're going to give me gray hair. Over the next few days, her field research became infamous around the station. She practiced idioms on engineers, sarcasm on officers, and metaphors on anyone within range. Once, she told a security guard that he was as jumpy as toast. because she'd mixed up Jumpy as a rabbit and popping toast. Elias spent hours apologizing to baffled crewmates. Yet her enthusiasm was infectious. People started looking forward to her visits. Even the gruff captain once laughed when Rinna marched into a meeting to proudly report, "Captain, I have mastered sarcasm. Permission to deploy?" Elias nearly fainted from embarrassment, but the captain only nodded sagely and said, "Permission granted." Every night, back in their classroom, they'd debrief. Rinna would recount her daily linguistic disasters, and Elias would correct her with a mix of patience and amusement. Sometimes, when she grew frustrated, she'd groan and drop her head onto the table, ears drooping dramatically. "I sound stupid," she'd mumble. "All wrong. I try to smirk, to joke, but it is always strange." Elias would lean closer, voice gentle. "It's not strange, Rinna. It's brave. Language isn't just rules, it's how we connect. And you're doing that better than anyone." She'd peek up at him, eyes soft. "You really think so?" "I know so." She'd smile then, tail curling loosely around her chair leg, a quiet, happy gesture he'd learned to recognize. Their connection deepened, not through grand gestures, but in those little moments. The way she'd bring him tea when he forgot to eat. The way she'd mimic his accent when reading aloud, then burst out laughing at her own attempt. The way he'd start explaining idioms only to realize she already understood them, but just wanted to hear him talk. One evening, the power flickered across the station, dimming the lights. The two of them sat close at the table, candles flickering from emergency backups. "Human lights are lazy," Rinna said, squinting. "Always go out when I read." He chuckled. "Yeah, they have terrible timing." She tilted her head. "Timing? Like choosing when to do something. Lights should wait until we're finished before going out." "Ah," she murmured thoughtfully. "Like you and words." He blinked. "What?" She smiled faintly. "You always wait before saying nice things. Then you say them when it is too late to hide." That made his heart skip. "You think I hide things?" Her ears twitched. "Maybe. But I am learning to read faces too." The flickering light painted her in gold and shadow, and for a heartbeat, Elias forgot to breathe. She looked ethereal, her expression soft, teasing, but no longer childish. The smirk she gave him was quiet, intentional. He forced a laugh. "I'll have to improve my timing then." "Yes," she said simply, holding his gaze. "You will." The next day, she was different, more confident, more deliberate. When she smirked now, it wasn't random or forced. It was communication, pure and precise. A tilt of her lips meant, "I'm teasing." A raised brow meant, "I understand you." Sometimes a small, private smile said, "Thank you." Elias noticed every one. He was proud, truly proud, but also hopelessly distracted. Every time she smirked, he felt it somewhere deep, uncomfortably warm. Their lessons grew longer. She'd linger after hours, asking about slang, jokes, the difference between like and love. "Humans love too easily," she said once, ears flicking uncertainly. "You love food, love movies, love rain. Do you ever mean it?" "Sometimes," he said quietly. "But when we do, it matters." She studied him in silence, tail curling tighter. "Then I will learn that word last." That night, he lay awake thinking about it. By the week's end, her English exam was scheduled. Mr. Donald Carey, the stiff representative from the Language Standards Division, would oversee it personally. Elias dreaded it. Carey was everything Rinna wasn't, humorless, rigid, allergic to joy. When he told her, she didn't seem nervous. "I will smirk at him," she said confidently. "Please don't," Elias muttered. "I will smirk, perfectly." And from the way she said it, soft, proud, and with that knowing little smile, Elias began to realize she wasn't joking anymore. She wanted to show him she'd learned. Not just the word, but what it meant. That smirk wasn't just practice anymore. It was for him. The day before Rinna's evaluation, the Meridian's language bay buzzed with quiet tension. Elias tried to act calm, pacing the room with a tablet in hand, but Rinna saw right through him. "You are nervous," she said flatly, flicking her tail against his leg. "You walk in circles like chasing tail." He shot her a look. "I'm not nervous. I'm, mentally preparing." She smirked. "Humans say that when they are nervous." He sighed, defeated. "Okay, fine. Maybe a little." Carrie's strict. "He doesn't appreciate creativity." Rinna perked her ears. "Creativity is my favorite rule." "Exactly what worries me," Elias muttered. Still, she practiced diligently that day. Her pronunciation was nearly flawless now, her vocabulary broad enough to hold conversation in multiple tenses. Only her sense of humor remained dangerously unpredictable. When he asked her to use smirk in a sentence, she leaned across the table, voice soft and precise. "You smirk when you think someone is falling for you." Elias froze, stylus halfway through a note. "That's grammatically correct." "Good," she said innocently. "Because I practice truth and grammar together." He choked on air. "Rinna." She stood, tail flicking triumphantly. "Then I passed test already." He rubbed his face, trying to hide his grin. "You're impossible." She leaned closer, whispering. "No. Just fluent." By evening, half the ship knew about her upcoming evaluation. Crew members stopped by to wish her luck, leaving small trinkets or jokes for her to translate later. Elias saw how much she changed since arriving, no longer the shy, uncertain student clutching a translation device, but a confident presence who could make anyone laugh. Yet that night, when he passed by her quarters, he found her sitting alone, staring at her notebook. "You okay?" he asked, leaning in the doorway. Her tail twitched nervously. "I am scared," she admitted quietly. "What if I speak wrong? What if Mr. Carey thinks I am joke?" Elias stepped closer. "You've worked hard. You'll do great." "But he is human," she murmured. "He decides what is right. If he says I am wrong, then maybe I am." That hit him like a punch. He crouched beside her. "Hey! Don't ever let someone like Carey tell you that. English isn't just his. It's ours, everyone's who uses it. Even humans mess it up constantly." She looked at him, uncertain. "You?" He grinned. "Especially me." That earned him a faint laugh. "Then maybe I am teacher now," she teased. "Deal," he said softly. "But tomorrow, just be yourself. You don't need to sound perfect, you just need to sound like you." Her ears lifted slightly, and for a moment she smiled that perfect little half-smile, the one she practiced for weeks, but which now came completely naturally. "Then I will smirk at him," she said. Politely. The next morning arrived far too quickly. Elias met Rinna outside the evaluation chamber, where Mr. Carey waited behind a glass wall with a clipboard and an expression like sour milk. "Good luck," Elias murmured. "I do not need luck," Rinna said with a grin. "I have grammar." She stepped into the room, back straight, tail perfectly still. The test began easily, basic phrases, comprehension questions, situational dialogue. She answered everything smoothly, her accent charming but clear. Elias watched from the side, pride swelling with every word. Then came the open conversation section. Carey adjusted his glasses. "Describe something humans do that you find peculiar." Rinna thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Humans smile too much when they are sad. They pretend. It is strange, but also kind." Even Carey paused, pen hovering. "Interesting," he said stiffly. "And what about the word smirk? Demonstrate its use." Rinna turned her gaze to Elias, as if the rest of the world had disappeared. She tilted her head slightly, one ear flicking, and said softly, "A smirk is when you tease someone you like. Because you know they understand." Then she did it, small, confident, perfect. Elias felt it like gravity. The entire room seemed to pause. For a heartbeat, Carey said nothing. Then his frown deepened. "Incorrect," he barked. A smirk is self-satisfied, almost mocking. Not sentimental. The words cut sharper than he meant. Rinna's ears fell flat. Oh, she murmured. Then, I am wrong again. Carrie scribbled a note and moved on, but Elias saw the light dim in her eyes. When the evaluation ended, Carrie gave his curt approval. Adequate progress, he said coldly. But her idiomatic understanding remains inconsistent. Elias clenched his jaw. She's fluent enough to make a poet blush, Carrie. Maybe your definition's inconsistent. Carrie's gaze narrowed. Your methods are unorthodox, Mercer. Be careful they don't undermine results. He left without another word. As the door hissed shut, Rinna sat quietly, staring at her notebook. He said I was wrong, she whispered. Elias sat beside her. He was wrong. But he is human. Language is his. Rinna, he interrupted gently. Humans invented English, sure. But it doesn't belong to one kind of person. It changes with us, with everyone who uses it. He memorized rules. You learn meaning. She looked up at him, confusion flickering into curiosity. Meaning? He smiled faintly. You understood that a smirk isn't about arrogance, it's about connection. You got it right. He just doesn't know it. She studied him for a long moment. Then, she said slowly, lips curving again. I smirk correctly? Elias chuckled. Perfectly. Her tail swayed once soft against his knee. Then maybe I teach him next time. He laughed quietly, shaking his head. I'd pay to see that. Rinna leaned closer, her smirk returning, warm and full of life. He does not know what he misses, she whispered. But you do. Elias's breath caught. Her English was perfect. Her timing flawless. And her smirk was lethal. Elias didn't say anything for several seconds. He just looked at her, really looked. The way her ears perked when she smiled. The way her tail swayed gently, matching the rhythm of her breath. There was no trace of the shy, uncertain student who had walked into his class months ago. She had grown into herself, confident, mischievous, and heartbreakingly fluent. Rinna, he said finally, voice quieter than he intended. You did great in there. Don't let Carrie ruin it. She tilted her head. But he said I was wrong. He's wrong a lot, Elias said flatly. You'll learn something about humans. We pretend to be experts even when we aren't. She blinked. Even teachers? Especially teachers. That earned him a tiny laugh. She leaned her cheek into her palm, still smirking, though there was a tired sadness behind it. I thought when I learned English, I would feel equal. But it still feels like there is a wall. Elias's expression softened. You don't need to sound human to be equal. You just need to be you. That's what language is supposed to do, help people understand each other. Her gaze lingered on him. Then you understand me? More than most, he said honestly. That seemed to reach her. The tension in her shoulders loosened, her tail gave a slow, thoughtful sway. Then, maybe I am not failing. Not even close. He smiled faintly. If anything, you're the best student I've ever had. She beamed. You say that to all your students? Only the ones who terrify the language division. That finally drew a laugh from her, real, bright and healing. Elias relaxed. The weight in the room lifted. They left the testing chamber together, walking the quiet corridor that overlooked the planet below. Through the wide observation windows, soft blue clouds drifted across oceans that glowed faintly in the planet's dawn light. Rinna pressed a hand to the glass, eyes reflecting the horizon. Pretty, she whispered. Like home. Different colors, but same feeling. What was it like? Elias asked. She smiled wistfully. No stations. No noise. Just forest and wind. We learn words from scent, not sound. When I came here, I was afraid words would break me apart. He glanced at her, surprised by the honesty. And did they? Almost, she said softly. Then she turned, her golden eyes finding his. Until you helped me use them. Elias felt something tighten in his chest. You didn't need me, Rinna. You just needed time. She shook her head. No. I needed someone who did not laugh when I failed. Someone who listened to meaning instead of mistake. There was silence, a long, gentle silence that neither of them wanted to end. The hum of the station was distant, the glow from the planet soft across her fur. You're something else, you know that? He said finally. I know many things now, she said proudly. Grammar, idioms, smirking, teasing. And humility, clearly. She grinned. Not yet. Elias laughed. But when her tail brushed lightly against his arm, it wasn't playful this time, it lingered, warm and deliberate. He turned, finding her closer than he expected. I have question. She murmured. Shoot. When humans say, reading between lines, they mean understanding what is not said, yes? Exactly. Then maybe you read between my words too much. He blinked. What do you mean? Her eyes softened. Maybe I don't hide meaning. Maybe I say it. Just differently. Elias's heartbeat stuttered. Rinna. She looked up at him, ears tilting forward in quiet challenge. Do you understand me now? He wanted to answer, to make a joke, to diffuse it with something clever. But instead, he just nodded. Slowly. Yes, he said. I think I do. Her smile grew small and real, the kind that wasn't rehearsed or practiced. Then maybe we both speak same language now. They stood like that for a while. The human teacher and the vulpine student, two different worlds joined by a single word, a shared silence, a mutual understanding. And then, of course, she ruined the moment in the most Rinna way possible. Also, she said, breaking the tension with a teasing lilt, you still smirk wrong. He laughed. Oh, really? Yes. Too slow. Too gentle. She stepped closer, tail curling slightly around his leg. Let me show you. Elias opened his mouth to protest, but she had already done it. That tiny tilt of the lips, the soft gleam in her eyes that said she knew exactly what she was doing. He could only shake his head. I've created a monster. Fluent monster, she corrected proudly. He chuckled. Congratulations, Rinna. You've officially outsmarted English. She smirked. No. I just learned, the right teacher. Elias didn't trust himself to reply. When they finally reached the lift, Rinna lingered in the doorway. Elias? She said softly. Yeah? She hesitated, then smiled that same soft, meaningful smile. Thank you for listening. He felt the words settle deep inside him. Anytime. The doors closed, and her reflection faded with the glass. But that smirk, her perfect, genuine smirk, stayed burned in his mind long after she was gone. Later that night, he sat alone in the classroom, staring at the phrase she'd written on the board before leaving. Language is not about words. It is about who hears them. Underneath, in smaller handwriting, she had added, P.S. You still smirk wrong. Elias laughed quietly, leaning back in his chair. Yeah, he murmured, but I'm learning. Outside the viewport, the planet turned slowly, painted in dawnlight. Somewhere down the corridor, he could hear her laughter echo faintly through the hall, bright, wild, alive. And for the first time in a long time, Elias found himself smirking back. Rinna didn't come to lessons the next day. Elias tried not to read too much into it at first. Maybe she'd overslept, or maybe she was off charming some other crew member into correcting her vocabulary again. But by midday, he found himself checking the clock every 5 minutes. Her laughter usually filled this room by now. The silence was strange. When he finally went looking for her, he found her down by the observation deck, sitting on the floor with her knees pulled to her chest. The massive viewport stretched above her, showing the deep curve of the planet, clouds sliding like silver silk beneath the station. She wasn't crying, not exactly. But her tail lay flat and motionless, her ears angled low, a quiet kind of sadness. Hey, he said softly. You missed class. She didn't look up. I was not feeling very clever today. Elias sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. You don't have to be clever every day, Rinna. I thought if I learned your words, she murmured, humans would treat me the same. But Mr. Carey looked at me like I was pretending to be one of you. Like a child wearing her parents' shoes. Elias's chest tightened. He doesn't get it. People like him make rules, she said quietly. He nodded. And then get mad when someone makes something better. That earned a faint chuckle. She lifted her gaze toward the stars. Maybe I am too much trouble for English. Maybe English isn't ready for you, he countered. That made her laugh a little more, a soft, melodic sound that always seemed to settle somewhere behind his ribs. I don't understand you, she said. You are human, but you never correct me the way Carrie does. You don't care when I make mistake. He smiled. Because mistakes mean you're trying. That's the point of learning. If I corrected everything, you'd stop talking. And I'd miss that. Rinna tilted her head. Miss my voice? Yeah, he said. The station's too quiet without it. Her ears twitched slightly. She leaned closer, studying him. You are serious. He nodded. Dead serious. Rinna's expression softened. Then maybe you like my voice? Maybe I do. She smiled, soft and a little uncertain, and said, Then I will talk more. He chuckled. You already talk plenty. Yes, she said, eyes gleaming. But now I know you listen. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the station filled the silence, distant but constant. Elias found himself watching her reflection in the viewport glass, how her ears lifted again, how her expression slowly brightened, how her tail gave a lazy flick once, twice, as her mood lifted. I think Carrie made you doubt yourself, he said finally. But he doesn't decide what's correct. You do. Language isn't just grammar, it's people, feeling, timing. You already understand all of that better than most. She blinked. Feeling and timing. Exactly. You don't need perfect words to mean something real. Her smile returned, a little crooked this time. Then maybe I was right. My smirk was correct. Absolutely. Rinna's tail brushed his leg. Then next time he says wrong, I will smirk again. Harder. Elias laughed, shaking his head. That's the spirit. Will you be there? She asked suddenly. Where? When I smirk again. He met her eyes, realizing she wasn't really talking about the test anymore. Yeah, he said softly. I'll be there. She smiled then, a true, small, glowing smile, and leaned her head against his shoulder. Then I think I can learn anything. He hesitated only a moment before resting his hand gently on her back. You already have. For a while they just sat like that, the stars turning slowly outside, the planets spinning below them. Over the next few days, things between them changed, but in small, easy ways. She still teased him mercilessly in lessons, still twisted idioms into nonsense, but her confidence had returned. And Elias, he stopped pretending he wasn't enjoying her company more than he should. Once, as they shared lunch in the lounge, she said, You chew food loud when you think. He blinked. What? You always chew slow and stare at walls when you are thinking. I learn your habits. You're studying me now? Yes, she said proudly. Field research. He laughed. What's the hypothesis? That human teachers are strange, she said matter-of-factly. Accurate, he admitted. She smirked. But kind. He looked up at her then, and something unspoken passed between them, familiar, warm, inevitable. From that day on, her smirks carried something different. They weren't jokes anymore, or mimicry. They were hers, fluent, expressive, full of life. Sometimes she'd catch his eye in a crowd and smirk just enough to make him forget what he was doing. Other times, when she laughed too hard at one of her own misused idioms, he'd smirk back, just to watch her tail fluff up in mock annoyance. They were learning each other now, line by line, word by word. And when he caught her doodling in her notebook one afternoon, a sketch of a fox and a human sitting under stars, he didn't tease her about it. He just smiled. Because she'd written something underneath it in perfect, flowing English. We speak the same now. A few days later, Mr. Carey's report arrived on the terminal. Elias skimmed it quickly. Subject demonstrates unconventional but functional fluency. Emotional comprehension high. Recommend further observation. He smirked. Unconventional but functional. Sounds about right. Behind him, Rinna peeked over his shoulder. Does he still think I smirk wrong? He didn't mention it, Elias said. Maybe you broke him. She grinned. Then I am best student. You always were. Rinna tilted her head, eyes sparkling. Then maybe I am done learning? He hesitated, then shook his head. Language never stops teaching you. She smiled at that, then leaned close enough that her breath brushed his ear. Then you must keep teaching me, forever. Elias froze. And before he could answer, she smirked, slow, confident, perfect. The next few weeks blurred together in a kind of quiet wonder. Lessons had turned into conversations, and conversations into something far more natural, and far more dangerous to Elias's peace of mind. Every morning, Rinna arrived early, tail swishing in anticipation, pretending it was to review vocabulary. But he noticed the way her ears perked when she saw him, the way she lingered by the door before leaving, as if saying goodbye had suddenly become too small a word. He told himself it was nothing. Teacher and student. Human and alien. Two friends sharing language. But the way she looked at him sometimes made all those logical categories fall apart. That night, the station drifted in silent orbit, its hull glowing faintly against the black. The linguistic bay was empty except for them, lights dimmed to half bright. Rinna had insisted on extra practice before her next communications assessment. Repeat after me, Elias said, tapping the tablet. I smirked because I knew something they didn't. Rinna's pronunciation was flawless. I smirked because I knew something they didn't. Good. Now, what does that sentence mean? She smiled faintly. It means, I am clever. He chuckled. Not wrong. But it also means you understand something deeper, maybe even something secret. Her tail flicked thoughtfully. Then maybe I know something you don't. He raised a brow. Oh? And what's that? She leaned closer, her voice almost a whisper. That you smirk more now. Because of me. Elias blinked, completely unprepared. I do not. You do, she insisted, her ears angling in amusement. Every time you think I am funny. Or when you try not to look at my tail. Rinna. Her grin widened, dangerous and delighted. Ah. He blushes. Proof. He groaned, burying his face in his hands. You're learning all the wrong things. No, she said gently, lowering his hands. I learned the right things. The ones that make you smile. He froze, caught by her tone, not teasing, not mischievous, but warm and earnest. For once, she wasn't joking. You really mean that? He asked softly. Of course, she said. Humans talk with words. Foxes talk with hearts. Poetic. He murmured. Fluent. She corrected, smirking. He laughed despite himself. You're impossible. Then stop trying to resist, she said, grinning now, playful again. Her tail brushed against his leg, not by accident, not anymore. For a few long seconds neither of them moved. The faint hum of the life support systems filled the silence, the stars outside drifting like slow silver dust. Elias felt the world narrow to the space between them, to the soft gleam in her eyes, to the flicker of warmth in his chest that had been building for months. He told himself it was just friendship, just mentorship. But standing here now, he knew better. Rinna. He began, careful, cautious. You know this can't. She tilted her head. Can't what? Be more than this. Why? He hesitated. You're my student. Her ears flicked forward. Not anymore. Mr. Carey said I am fluent. He winced. That's not what I meant. Then what do you mean? She pressed. He struggled for words, the irony not lost on him. It's complicated. Her tail swished, slow and deliberate. Language is complicated too. But we learned it. He smiled faintly, helplessly. You're using my own lessons against me. Good student. She teased. Too good. He murmured. She stepped closer, her voice softening. You taught me to understand meaning behind words. So tell me, what is the meaning when you look at me like that? He didn't answer, couldn't. He only met her gaze, the silence between them saying everything words couldn't. Rena smiled, small and certain. I thought so. Then she did what only she could make seem both mischievous and tender, she smirked. Perfectly. The motion was tiny, but it hit him harder than any speech ever could. Every lesson, every joke, every moment they'd shared seemed to live in that single look, understanding, gratitude, affection. Elias exhaled slowly. You're dangerous with that expression. She tilted her head. You like dangerous? He laughed softly. Yeah. Maybe I do. She stepped close enough that he could feel the faint warmth radiating off her fur. Then, she whispered, teach me what comes next. Elias's voice was barely a murmur. There's no lesson planned for that. Then we make one, she said. Her hand brushed his, hesitant but sure, fingers threading with his. It was simple, human, universal. And it felt right. They stood like that for a long time, watching the planet turn beneath them, two learners, two translators, no longer separated by language or fear. When she finally spoke again, her voice was soft, playful again, but gentler than before. You know, she said, you still smirk wrong. He grinned. Yeah? She reached up and tapped the corner of his mouth with a clawed fingertip. It's supposed to mean something. Like this. Then she kissed him, brief, light, and warm as sunlight. Elias forgot every rule he'd ever known about teaching, language, or decorum. The universe outside could have burned, and he wouldn't have noticed. When she pulled back, her eyes sparkled. Better, she whispered. Now you smirk right. Elias laughed, quiet, amazed, a little dizzy. Guess the students surpassed the teacher. Rena's tail curled around his waist like an exclamation point. Good, she said softly. Because I am tired of lessons. I just want conversation. And so they talked, about words, about home, about anything and everything. Until the lights dimmed and the world outside slipped into shadow. Neither of them noticed when the automated system logged the end of their lesson. When the morning cycle lit the corridors of the Meridian, everything looked the same, but everything felt different. Elias had expected awkwardness. Instead, Rena greeted him with a grin and a casual, "Good morning, teacher who is no longer teacher." Her tail flicked behind her like punctuation to every word. He blinked. "That's your new title for me?" "Yes," she said with mock solemnity. "It is long but accurate. You can shorten it to Elias." He smiled. "Generous of you." They shared a quiet breakfast in the commissary. A few crew members gave them curious glances, but Rena was too busy trying to figure out why humans called coffee black. "It is not black," she said, peering into the cup. "It is very dark brown. Should be called sad brown water." "That's fair," he admitted. She sipped, grimaced, then smirked. "I think I like it." "Of course you do," he muttered, hiding a laugh. Their routine continued, but now every moment carried a new kind of ease. Rena's English had gone from practice to natural. Her mistakes became jokes they shared, her curiosity less frantic, more confident. When she helped translate a new species dialect for the station linguistics team, even Carrie had to send a terse commendation. Rena framed it on the classroom wall, right next to her doodles of tales and idioms. "Proof I am genius," she announced. "You're insufferable," Elias said fondly. "Fluent word," she replied, clearly proud of herself. But between the teasing and laughter, there were still quiet moments. Evenings spent watching the stars, her head resting against his shoulder, his hand unconsciously tracing small circles against the soft fur at her wrist. They didn't call it anything. They didn't need to. Language wasn't the only thing she had mastered. One night, as they sat watching the shuttle lights drift through orbit, Rinna spoke suddenly. "Do you ever think about going back to Earth?" she asked. He shrugged. "Sometimes. Haven't been in years." "What stopped you?" Elias smiled faintly. "The station needed linguists. And Earth already had enough of me." She frowned at that. "You think too small of yourself." He looked at her, amused. "And you think too highly of me." She tilted her head. "Then we balance." He couldn't argue with that logic. Rinna turned back to the stars, ears tilting forward. "I think sometimes humans and foxes learn the same way. You say trial and error. We say scratch and sniff." He laughed, caught off guard. "That's adorable." She nudged him. "It is science." And then, more softly, she added, "You never laughed at me. Only with me. I think that is why I learned so fast." He felt a warmth rise in his chest. "That's because you were never a joke, Rinna." She smiled gently. "Then why did you laugh when I said human smirk like constipated fox?" "Because that was funny," he admitted, grinning. "See?" she said, triumphant. Educational humor. Their rapport had become legendary around the station. The crew began calling them the wordsmiths. Engineers would drop by just to watch Rinna debate idioms with Elias, betting on who'd break first. She always won. But underneath all the laughter, there was something deeper growing, unspoken, steady, unshakable. Elias felt it whenever her hand brushed his. When she'd lean close to whisper translations in his ear. When her tail occasionally wrapped around his chair without her even realizing it. They never talked about what they were, maybe because either of them wanted to put boundaries on something that had been built by breaking them. Still, everyone could see it. Even Mr. Carey, unfortunately. He arrived on the station again 2 months later, gray and impatient as ever. Elias knew trouble the moment he saw that clipboard. "Officer Mercer," Carey said in his nasal tone. "I've reviewed your student's progress." "Former student," Elias corrected lightly. "She's part of the staff now." "Precisely my concern," Carey replied. "Her use of English has become casual. Far too idiomatic. She's even teaching colloquialisms that don't exist." Elias smirked. "That's how languages evolve." Carey's eyes narrowed. "Languages don't evolve through flirtation." Elias blinked. "Excuse me?" Carey tapped his clipboard. "I've reviewed her recorded lessons. The tone, the intimacy." "Hold on," Elias said sharply, stepping forward. "You're implying—" "I'm observing," Carey interrupted. "That your student seems more invested in you than in the curriculum." Elias clenched his jaw. "She's invested in learning. I care that she feels safe doing it." "Your judgment may be compromised," Carey said coldly. "Don't forget you represent the language division, not a—" He stopped abruptly as Rinna entered the room. Her ears tilted slightly at the tension. "Is something wrong?" Carey stiffened. "Ah, Ms. Vera. We were just discussing your methods." She smiled politely. "My methods are effective. Everyone learns better when they laugh." "Language is not entertainment," Carey said. "Maybe that's why humans forget it so often," she countered sweetly. Elias had to bite back a grin. Carey huffed. "You've become rather cheeky." Rinna tilted her head, eyes glinting. "That's another way to say fluent, yes?" Carey stared, visibly struggling for a comeback. "You smirk far too much, young lady." Rinna smiled faintly, voice calm. "Then maybe I learn from the best." And before Elias could stop her, she gave Carey a slow, perfect smirk, every bit of confidence, grace, and charm she had learned distilled into one silent statement. "I understand you better than you understand me." Carey blinked, sputtered, then turned on his heel. "Unbelievable. Both of you." He stormed out. When the door shut, Rinna burst into laughter so pure and bright it echoed through the room. Elias leaned against the wall, shaking his head. You're going to get me fired one day. She wiped a tear from her eye. Worth it. He grinned. That was impressive, though. You handled him better than I ever could. She flicked her tail. Maybe I should teach now. You already do, he said softly. Their eyes met again, and that old warmth returned, the one that needed no translation. Rinna smirked, just barely. So, teacher who is no longer teacher, how did I do? Elias smiled back, his voice low and sincere. Perfect, Rinna. You were perfect. The station lights dimmed toward artificial dusk, their glow turning the metal walls a warm amber. Rinna and Elias sat in the quiet classroom one last time, surrounded by the faint hum of the Meridian's systems and the scattered evidence of months of laughter. Her notebooks, doodles of tales beside grammar charts, his half-erased notes on idioms and contractions. The place felt smaller now, not because the walls had changed, but because she no longer fit inside the role that had once defined her. So that's it, Elias said softly. Your official posting's confirmed. You'll be the first non-human instructor in the station's linguistics program. Rinna's ears perked up, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. It sounds big. It is, he said. You earned it. Her tail curled around one leg, thoughtful. It means less time here, though. He hesitated. Yeah. They sat in that silence a while, listening to the faint hiss of the air filters. Somewhere far off, an automated chime signaled the end of shift hours. Either of them moved. Finally, Rinna said, When I first came here, I was afraid every word would make me smaller. Now it feels like words made me bigger. Like I can reach things I couldn't before. Elias smiled. That's what language does. It connects you to everything. She turned to him, expression softening. Then why do I feel like it's pulling me away from something, too? He tried to keep his tone light. You're not going far. Just a few decks down. You'll be teaching in the same wing. She gave him a look that told him she wasn't talking about geography. Elias, she said quietly, will you still visit? Even if I am no longer your student? He laughed gently. You really think I could stay away? Rinna's ears flicked. Then it is promise. Promise. Her first class began the next week. Elias slipped in at the back of the lecture hall, trying not to draw attention. She stood at the front in a crisp new uniform, her posture proud, tail perfectly still in focus. A dozen mixed-species students watched her with varying degrees of curiosity and nervousness. She began simply. Hello? I am Instructor Vera. Today we learn the most important rule of language. She turned toward the board and wrote, in large flowing letters, Don't be afraid to sound wrong. The class chuckled. Elias smiled, leaning back in his chair. She caught sight of him briefly and, without missing a beat, smirked, small, knowing, and entirely hers. Then she continued the lesson. It was the most natural thing in the world. Afterward, he found her in the corridor outside, the crowd of new students buzzing around her, full of excitement. She looked radiant, confident in a way she hadn't even months ago. When they were finally alone, she tilted her head. Did I sound like teacher? Better than I ever did, he said. You didn't even need notes. I just remembered how you spoke to me, she said with a small shrug. Kind. Patient. Too many coffee cups. He laughed. Accurate. Her ears flicked shyly. Still, I worried I might smirk too much. Impossible, he said. She stepped closer, her tail curling lightly behind her. You always say that. Because it's always true. There it was again, that look between them, the one that had carried them from awkward lessons to shared silence to everything that existed now, unnamed but real. Rinna broke it with a grin. Maybe I teach a new word today. Oh? He asked. What word? She stood on her toes slightly, her voice a whisper. Home. He blinked. Home? It means where I am understood, she said. And I think I finally know how to use it. Before he could answer, she reached up and pressed her forehead against his. Not a kiss, not quite, but something that meant more. You taught me words, she said softly. But I think you gave me meaning. Elias smiled, closing his eyes. Then we both learned something. That evening, they stood by the viewport again. The planet below glowed with a slow sunrise, oceans gilded with light. She leaned beside him, tail brushing lazily against his leg. You know, he said, Carrie sent me a message this morning. Her ears tilted curiously. Did he apologize for existing? He laughed. Not exactly. He said your teaching reports are impressive. He wants to send a representative from Earth to observe your program. Rena smirked. To learn how to smirk properly? Something like that. She chuckled, then fell quiet, watching the shifting clouds below. Strange, she murmured. How small everything looks from up here. I used to think the universe was huge. Now it feels smaller, but closer. That's what understanding does, he said. It brings things closer. She turned to him. Even people? Especially people. She smiled, and in the reflection of the glass, he saw that perfect curve of her mouth, a smirk so subtle it almost wasn't one, soft with humor, warm with affection. You're doing it again, he said. She blinked. Doing what? Smirking. Her tail flicked. Maybe I just can't help it around you. He smiled. Then I'll never correct you. Good, she said, leaning against him. Because I am fluent now. The stars outside shifted, the planet rolled on, and in that quiet orbiting world of steel and light, a human and a vulpine woman watched on together, two voices, once separated by a universe of misunderstanding, now speaking perfectly in the same unspoken language. And when she finally whispered, Elias? He answered without looking away from the horizon. Yeah? I think I finally understand what smirk means. Oh? He teased. And what's that? She smiled, her voice low and sure. It means, I'm happy. He turned, their eyes meeting in the glow of a rising sun. Yeah, he said quietly. Me too. Her tail brushed his hand, and without needing any more words, she smirked again, that perfect, effortless little expression that had started it all. This time, he didn't look away. If Rena's smirk made you smile, hit subscribe and join us for the next story, where humanity's greatest strength isn't power, but connection.